now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our final segment of the night, and that is none other than the Advice Corner. Now, first and foremost, I want to go ahead and I want to thank everybody who's still with us, who's still viewing the live stream. I think like right now we have 94 viewers, and I think we capped 108 so far tonight. So that's actually pretty good. And I also want to take this opportunity to go ahead and thank those of you all who have been sending emails my way for the Advice Corner segment. Once again, if you have any type of problem or issue or anything like that that you feel either myself or one of my guest stars, Ugo Strange or Uber Hikari, that we could help you out with, please feel free to send us, your issue in any personal email and send that over to otakuassemble@gmail.com. So with that being said, I have another one for you guys, and this one actually sort of, I think this one will be a pretty easy one, but every now and then we need people. This is one of those topics where I think it's like, yeah, the obvious answer to it, but at the same time, you need to be reinforced and reassured and reaffirmed on things. So this one comes from John D, and he writes, Larry, I'm a longtime viewer. I'm glad you decided to dabble in YouTube again. Your videos always resonated with me because you're bursting with passion, intellect, and creativity, which is why I'm coming to you for some dear advice. So I appreciate that, John. Thanks for watching. Appreciate that. As an artist pursuing a passion or dream, when do you know if it's time to give up? When do you decide to move on, grow up, or be pragmatic? I say this as a 25-year-old who spent much of his adult life pursuing filmmaking and film criticism with little to no headway. I love what I do, but at what point is that enough? I work medical jobs to make ends meet in hopes of one day making a living off of my art, but that seems less and less likely as the days go on. Do you have any experience with this? And if so, what did you do? So, again, like I said, I feel like this is one of those topics where the answer is obvious, but once again, it is important that every now and then we need to be reaffirmed, reassured, and we just need some constituents in these types of situations. So, guys, number one question: when, as an artist pursuing a passion or dream, when do you know if it's time to give up?
Never. Never. Wow. Now, hold on. I want to say something because this dude, he said he's 25. He's working in film and filmmaking and all that. Look, let me tell you something. If you're watching, and I don't know if you are watching, but look, I'm 30 right now. I have a job to make ends meet. But next year, I'm planning to go to Script Fest to make this thing happen. So do whatever you got to do. Save up your money. Do what you got to do. Next year, I'm going to Script Fest. I'll make a video about it and all that. But next year, I'm going. I'm doing this. So never. Always just research avenues you can pursue, but never.
Hikari?
Oh, wow. I would say you should stop pursuing your dream when doing so compromises your life in ways you can no longer tolerate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sensible.
Right? At some point, I mean, because in order to follow your dreams, there are going to have to be sacrifices. And at some point, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be 5 years from now, but at some point, you're going to look back at all the sacrifices you made, and you might say to yourself, I can no longer tolerate these sacrifices. Mm-hmm. And at that point, if you can no longer tolerate those sacrifices, then the negatives of pursuing your dream just might outweigh the positives. And this happens at different times for different people. And what's important, though, is that you have to be honest. I mean, because some people will pursue their dreams into misery. And I would not recommend that. At the point at which something becomes miserable for you, it is now a burden. And it's not wise to live your life with those kinds of burdens.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I'll agree to that.
Yeah, where I'm at on that one, I'm pretty much the both of you. And that's if it's still your, if it's still your passion, if it's still your dream, never stop. But at the same time, if you've become miserable because of it, then you probably should. But what I will say is this though, I wouldn't even necessarily at that point say stop. I would just say maybe take a break for a while. But because if memory serves, and I'm trying to remember my history, but I think at one point in time, Edgar Allan Poe couldn't stand to write anymore. And I also think that he kind of took a little sabbatical and cranked out 2-3 more stories before he inevitably ended up passing away. But the thing is, it's like, if it's what you're passionate for, man, let me put it to you like this. Actually, you know what? I have a better way of saying this. When to stop pursuing a dream? If it can't get you out of the bed in the morning anymore, then you probably should stop at that point. If it's not the reason you wake up in the morning anymore, you probably should stop. And that's because chances are it's probably not it's probably not your dream anymore. And I'll even say it like this. It's like, I'm not talking about like, I mean, granted, I do feel like, if it's something that you're passionate about, that it's one of the first things, if not the first thing on your mind every morning. But what I'm meaning is this: even if you're not getting up and going to pursue that thing on that day, like let's say you got to work that day and you ain't, and he mentioned like he works in the medical field. Okay, let's say if you are, you're a nurse. If you're a registered nurse and you're looking down the barrel of a 14 to 16 hour shift that day, if you don't wake up that morning like, yes, I got to go to work because the income I make from this job is going to help me in my endeavor to pursue what I want, even if you can't get to that point, then at that point you should probably stop. Because at that point, that means, because once again, like Hikari said, because working the job you're working, that's the sacrifice you have to make in order to be able to pursue what you want to pursue. And if it's gotten to the point now where you can't even do that, then it's become detrimental to you.
And I would like to piggyback, not piggyback, but I would like to add that the film, getting into film making is tough, So, I mean, I don't know what this dude is doing, but it's like, have you made a short film? Is it on YouTube? Like, what's up? Have you done any of that? You might want to try getting your feet wet, hone your skills, because, I haven't made a YouTube video in a while now. But if anything, I did the little series that I did back then, and I'm like, okay, if anything, I got better at doing what I'm doing. So hone your skills, man. If you want to do film criticism, keep watching films, keep criticizing. Create a blog, get your content out there. One way or another, get it out there somewhere, Join a Reddit group. I don't know, man. Just get yourself out there,
You're lagging.
Find some way in which it can still be a patent, super profound, and no one heard it, so I'll just... Am I good? You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, you were lagging for like the last 2 sentences.
Oh, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And I would also say that there's different levels to dreams. Like, some people have dreams that are just not achievable.
Yeah, if you want to be the world's greatest breakdancer at 90, that ain't gonna happen.
You know what I mean? I think the one thing about dreams is passion. You have to be willing to pursue your dream, even if it means you will never be acknowledged for it.
Yep.
Even if it means it won't make you money. Hell, man, you can pursue dreams even if you're not great at it. But you have to set those terms for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be prepared for what may come, essentially. Because if you want to be the next Beyonce, well, tough luck. You're not going to be the next Beyonce. It's just,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
and oh, man,
there's levels to this shit.
Yeah, and it's real tough too. It's real tough to try and figure those things out. I can just say for me personally, because my dream and what I want to do professionally and whatnot, it's changed. Like I don't necessarily look at it like, oh, I'm reneging or I'm going back or anything like that. To me, I feel like I've refined what my dream is, because ever since I was a kid, and I talked about it briefly, in my anime favorites, Pokemon video, where I was talking about like, oh, it was real inspiring watching that series at such a young age, because it's about a character going out and, trying to achieve a dream. And I talk about like the outlandish dreams that I had when I was a small kid. But, before I wanted to be Michael Jordan, before I wanted to be The Rock, my thing was I always yes, I wanted to be Dwayne Johnson. Yes, I wanted to be Michael Jordan. Okay, I was 10. Get off my case. Anyway,
who didn't?
But the thing was, even before that though, like I realized at a really early age, like I was always into art. I was always into comics. I was always into cartoons, and I think like I was 12 when I decided like I want to make that material. And then I started refining what that was, what that actually meant, because, I could have just been an animator, but that wouldn't fulfilled, what it was I wanted to do. It's like, I wanted to create the material that I was getting. So, okay, well, so like to use, because back then it was like, oh, I want to make anime. Okay, well, anime is adapted from manga. Oh, snap. And that means I have to be a manga creator. So that's when I got into comics. And then at that point I was like, well, I like the artwork and stuff like that, but I really want to tell the story. I want to create the world of this series. Okay, well, then you want to be a writer. And then by the time I got into college was when I realized, it's like, you know what? It's like, trying to be an American mangaka. I mean, yeah, a manga is just a style of comic, but that whole nationality thing, I'm like, But American comics, on the other hand, this is my nation. This is my background. This is where I'm more needed. So then I wanted to get into American comics. And that's how I finally, sort of got everything down to an American comic book writer. So even then, like that, but that's just, you got to be honest with yourself about what it is that you really want to do. What is it that you really want to accomplish? Because for all you know, I mean, you talk about being a filmmaker. What if you had your own web series on YouTube? Would that fulfill your need to be a filmmaker, because you are making your own material, and you would have your own channel, and it would be your own brand, and all of your own writing, your directing, your editing, all of that. I mean, that hell, half of the fucking job is done right there. 3/4 of it, actually. The only thing that you probably wouldn't necessarily get from that is the type of dollars you could get working in Hollywood. But even with YouTube, hello, monetization, anybody?
Right.
So yeah, there's that to consider too. My thing is this though. Once again, it goes back to this idea of like, when is it? Like, I don't think it's ever okay to give up. That's the thing. I don't believe in that. I just don't. I just don't.
I think you can give up.
Nah, I would never say. I wasn't.
You can give up anytime your priorities in life change.
Yeah, I know. You probably a little bathroom, huh?
I mean, life.
That's your mic, Hugo.
Yeah, life is a process, and sometimes that process includes change, and sometimes that change may be different priorities. I have different priorities now. Maybe
Yeah,
I
well,
wanted to be maybe I wanted to be a filmmaker, but now I don't want to do that anymore. It happens. People's
that happens.
decisions change.
Yeah, that happens all the time too. That's happened so many times. And you know what? And you know what? It's kind of funny too, because now that I think about it, you know, in a lot of instances when we hear that those sort of changes happen for people, like you'll hear about it a lot of times in like motivational stories, inspirational stories following some type of tragedy, like a star athlete who gets injured, or you know, somebody. I mean, hell, fucking Doc Strange story. You know, he was this, you know, the greatest surgeon in the world, and he got into a car accident and he lost his hands, you know, the ability to be a surgeon, and then he ended up becoming the Sorcerer Supreme, even a fictional account. But here's the thing, though. You know what's funny is we always look at when it's these situations of people having to overcome, you know, some type of tragedy or something, that we say, oh, wow, you know, they weren't able to achieve this, but they were able to do this instead. And that's so, you know, that's so admirable and that's so inspirational. But we don't give that same acknowledgement to people who just make those sort of decisions on their own. Like, why is it that a woman who wants to become a world-class country music star deciding to instead invest her time, energy into her marriage and into her family? Why is that not as admirable as being the country music star? And the reason, and I know the answer for it, the reason for that is because today in our modern society, we have this idea that in order to that you have to do something like extraordinary in order to be considered great, and that's not always true. That's not always true. Like you have to do something, you know, just spectacular in order to be considered special. Not necessarily. That's not always true.
Right.
You know, why is it that a teacher who decides to, you know, why is it that a teacher who decides to spend half of her free time, you know, staying after school with her students, or, you know, taking them on trips, or going to their houses for personal visits, or just seeing them outside of school? Why is she not considered? Why is she not given the same sort of admiration as as the teacher whose students score the highest in the county, or in the state, or in the nation? You know what I mean? So that's the other thing too. Just because your priorities might change in life doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure.
Right. Or that you gave up.
Or that you gave up. Yeah. And that's the other fucking thing too. Once again, I don't mean to curse, because I try to keep it appropriate, but that's another thing too. I'll be real with you, John, because I think this is your major problem, dude. First and foremost, you gotta accept the fact. You actually gotta be okay with the possibility of failure. And I think that's your first major roadblock. Like you even said it here. It's that you know, with little to no headway. But how many times have you tried? You know what I'm saying? Like have you tried 100 times yet? Have you tried 1,000 times yet? Like what is it that you've been doing? Like, you have to actually make it okay to fail. Because also, the thing is, if you
I was gonna say what's his gauge? No, I was gonna say what's his gauge for headway? Like,
right.
Well, where's your barometer with that? Like, if your barometer is, oh, I sell 1,000 screenplays, then of course you're a failure. But like, if your barometer is, okay, I've got a connection here, I got a connection there, you can see your network getting wider, then that's a different barometer. So it's like, where are you setting your goal of success here? You know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. What is the yardstick by which you are measuring your success? And that's the other thing, and I think, it kind of goes back to what Hikari was talking about, because even in terms of having priorities outside of your dream, you also need to have priorities within it. And that's the other, and that's pretty much where I want to get at with this is, you know, like what is the standard that you're setting for yourself? Is that standard being are you the one setting that standard, or are you having someone else or other people setting it for you? And then here's the other thing too. What happens when you fail? Like, what happens when you fail to meet that standard? Are you tearing yourself down every time you're doing it? Because, dude, I'm telling you right now, if that's the case, you're going to tear yourself down until you have nothing left. And that's what you can't allow yourself to do. Like, you have to make it okay to fail. Because here's the thing. If you I'm really trying not to quote anybody because I don't want to steal anybody's other thing. But
quote them.
Like, you only here's the thing.
Let me say this.
Go ahead, Hikari. Go ahead, Hikari.
Yeah, I want to say two things. First, I want to say that all journeys of greatness start with a humble endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, greatness is not defined by anything external. It's not people's acknowledgement. That can't be your motivation. It can't be people saying you're great. It can't be any accolades. It can be those things, but it cannot only be those things. Greatness is something you define. That's why it's humble. You know, I don't write poetry for other people's acknowledgement. I write poems because I like doing it and I want to be as good as I can be at doing it. That's humble. When somebody sits down to write a story, knowing that they might not ever be acknowledged, but they still want to write that story for themselves, that's humble.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your goals have to start with some form of humility. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to refine your end game. And you have to know what your end game is. I mean, I guess it just depends on what you want. When do you think you've succeeded? Do you think you've succeeded when you've written the best play you think you could possibly have written? Do you think you succeeded when you sold that play? Do you think you've succeeded when you've directed a movie that has major financing? When do you think you've succeeded? And when do you think that those goals, and do you think those goals are realistic and realistically achievable? I think that's the second thing. And the third thing I want to say is don't become so immersed in the present that you lose sight of the future, because people do this all the time. I want this, I want that. And they make their whole existence, their whole present about getting those things, getting that. But your life is about all the future possibilities you could have. And every time you overwhelm yourself with the present, you amputate a possible future. You lose something. And so you should always, that's what we mean by refinement. Being refined means that you've opened yourself up to all the future possibilities. Some you may dismiss immediately. Some you may dismiss and then come back to. Some you may think are great the first time you have that idea. But what I've learned through my own personal journey, and for me, this is a sort of personal question, because when I first had my mental illness, the one thing I did not understand was that this does not have to be always. There are lots of possible futures, and the path to making myself better is the path to making sure that I'm open to all of my possible futures. And at the end of it, I said, of course, I want to be able to cope with my mental illness. I want to be able to get a job. I want to be able to reintegrate into the community. I want to be able to get my own apartment. But at the end of the day, the one goal I always set for myself was to be the best possible version of myself that I could be. And that requires refinement. Some things fall by the wayside, some things you pick up. But in the end game is always opening yourself up to all the possible futures you could have. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that. And it's yeah, dude, I definitely, shit, I'm trying to figure out how to come back from that. like how do I follow that up? How do I follow that up? But you know, once again, I mean, I do want to keep going back to that, you know, that whole idea of, you know, making it okay to fail. You know,
yeah, that's a big one.
you know, like I think I'm trying to remember the quote, but I think it's like, you know, if I try 100 times and fail, so long as I get up, I'm never going to fail because I keep getting up. If I fail 100 times, and I keep getting up, do you think when will the time come where I just don't get up? It's like if I always get up, then I will never not get up. The only time you fail is when you stop trying. That is, and see, and you know, because right. I remember I used to tell this to my friends all the time and my family members all the time. And I tell it to myself all the time too. Whenever like, and Ugo, I know Ugo has heard this several times from me, because, you know, currently, like I'm still working on my next comic book, my next graphic novel, and Ugo's my story editor on that. And, you know, him and I have gone over this, you know, thousands of times. But the thing is, it's like, even when I feel like, you know, there have been numerous times, like just the issue I'm writing now, I've been working on this issue over 2 years and it's still not done. But, you know, I have to get there and I have to put myself in a position and I have to work on it. I have to work on it. And, you know, my sisters will ask me, you know, my friends will ask me, it's like, you know, how that's going. Well, what's wrong? How come it's taking so long? How come you're not putting out? You know, and then finally it gets to the point where it's like, well, if you're not making that much progress on it, why are you still working on it? Why are you still doing it? And I have to keep telling them, because if I don't do it, then the outcome is assured. It will never get done. If I don't work on it at all, it will never get finished. So that's why I have to keep going at it, even if I only get a page done, even if I sit there all day and I only knock out 6 panels worth of writing. Like if I don't sit there and put that day in, then guess what? That page is never going to produce itself. And if I don't keep going there and making the effort, you know, it's never going to happen.
Right.
And that's just the truth, because only, once again, like the statement I like to use is only in surrender is defeat absolute. Only in surrender is defeat absolute.
Yeah. People have to understand in all aspects of life, there are better and worse ways to fail. Trust me. Some ways of failing are better than others.
Yeah, and then do so to go ahead and sort of answer like this last question, you know, do you have any experience with this? And if so, what did you do? You know, it's like, yeah, I've had a ton of experience with this. Like I said, I've been working on the same chapter, not the same I mean, it is the graphic novel because it's a mini series. It's 6 issues, but I've been working on the same issue for over 2 years. And since like within that time frame, I've gone through 2 different jobs. I've gone through a relocation to another state. I've gone through a phase of unemployment twice. I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life, but at the end of the day, you know, I still know what has to be done, and I'm not fucking quitting. I am not quitting. I've always said, ever since I set out to do, you know, to be, you know, a comic book writer, I said, I'm going to be one of 2 things. Either I'm going to be a success story or I'm going to be a cautionary tale. I'm going to be one of the 2. I'm either going to be, this is what you have to do, or this is what you absolutely shouldn't do. And, but I don't, what I'm not going to settle for, and I'll tell you that what I'm not going to settle for is the middle. I'm not going to settle for mediocrity. I'm not going to fall in that gap. I know it's either I'm going all out and I'm going to succeed, or I'm going all out and I'm just going to fall flat on my face, straight up. And yeah, whenever I've been faced with those, you know, whenever I've been faced with those positions where it's like, you know, it's just, the monotony of the day, you know, the modernity of it all. Whenever that's got me, fuck, I quit a job because it was killing my creativity. And I left that, and I just quit that job. And that was my means, you know, to be able to pay for myself, you know. I quit because I'm like, you know what? This isn't working for me. It's not fitting for me. I have other things that I have to do, and, you know, and that's it. Hell, even me coming back to YouTube, like I'm coming, like those of you all who have been following my channel from